following clip is taken from a full episode of Hooligan Radio, our podcast where we talk movies, gaming, cryptids, conspiracies, true crime, and much, much more. If you like videos like this one, please consider subscribing and checking out our full-length podcasts here on YouTube or on iTunes if you just search Hooligan Radio. Thank you for watching.
I know, Josh, you were talking about earlier how you weren't really sure how to describe cryptids or exactly what talking about.
Genre of what you're going to be talking about?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly what I'm talking about.
So what are we talking about today?
So specifically today, we'll be talking about the legend Mothman, which is probably one of the most well-known cryptids in the world, I should say. For all of you that don't know what a cryptid is, technically, the definition of it is an animal whose existence or survival is disputed, or there's not enough evidence for it yet. So some other real popular cryptids that everyone knows: Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, things along that nature. Cryptids also start going into the paranormal realm at one point in time, where you start looking to ghosts, extraterrestrials.
The chupacabra.
Exactly, that's what a cryptid.
New Jersey Devil, that's one, right?
Yeah, the New Jersey Devil, which they actually named their hockey team after, because of how well known it is.
I never even put that together.
And the Ohio Grassman. I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
Which, if you guys give us enough money, we will do a live podcast searching for one. So I'll start talking about Mothman. So Mothman's original story talks about in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, is where it was originally started. A lot of the sightings for it happened within a 13-14 month span, mainly in the Point Pleasant, West Virginia areas. There are also plenty of other Mothman sightings throughout the world, different countries, all that. But at least it seems like a lot of it originated in West Virginia. And then some of these other cryptids that we'll talk about later on seem to sound pretty familiar to what Mothman is described as. Well, Mothman is described often through all of the reports as this dark, colored creature, humanoid winged creature, bipedal, walks on two legs. His coat's either described as being like a dark black, dark gray, dark browns, pretty much any darker shade color for his coat. He's roughly to be anywhere from 7 feet to 10 feet tall, with a wingspan covering 10 to 15 feet.
Jesus.
Which reportedly have allowed him to fly speeds up to 100 miles an hour. Which we'll get into a little bit more of that when we start talking about some of the reports and sightings. Usually all witnesses report Mothman including two red reflective eyes that sometimes are seen on his head, or sometimes seen on his chest, depending on if that Mothman was seen with a head or not.
I would easily poop my pants.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
If he didn't have a head, I'm out.
Right?
His arms are longer than this table we're sitting at.
Yes.
And his eyes are red. That's enough for me to be like, nope, and just drive off a bridge.
Exactly. His eyes could be on his chest. Just, that's not right.
That's not right. And just peace out, dude. I'm dead.
So the witnesses it's also reported that witnesses who have looked in the eyes of Mothman seem to suffer from paranoia and psychological distress over the next couple days, which have even lasted up to a couple months. Mainly, all that's coming from one of the original 4 people who saw Mothman, who went into pretty much extreme paranoia, extreme fear, and was hospitalized shortly after her sightings.
Yeah, I would lose my mind too. I would instantly be insane.
But one of my favorites reports of seeing Mothman has to be from one of the worst sites I've ever been on. Too many sites this week with me researching on have been black sites with red, highlighter green, or yellow text on it.
Yes, I'm so excited for your segment.
And you only know it's a valid site when it hurts to read it.
Jesus.
But in one of the few reports, Mothman was reportedly seen with his wings folded across his back, walking in a weird shuffle motion that only the witnesses could describe as a penguin. Which alone, a large winged penguin.
You're telling me that a 7 to 10 foot tall penguin was waddling at me with red eyes? I would easily have peed my pants and driven my car off of wherever I was driving. So my first question whenever we talk about cryptids is, how close are they to Zach and I? Because I've been friends with Zach for so long that I've determined that he and I are going to find one and collect whatever prize money there is for one.
We will go find the Ohio Grassman.
That's number 1 on the list.
Yes.
On the hit list.
He's going to be our first special guest.
Cryptid hit list. Number 1, Ohio Grassman.
All right. Well, the first original sighting of Mothman was November 12th, 1966, in Clendon, West Virginia. 5 men were in a cemetery preparing a grave burial for the next day when they came across a creature around the tree line. The creature was seen lifting off from the nearby trees. What the 5 men reported seeing was a large, dark brown winged creature, humanoid in figure. All 5 men reported that this could not have been a bird just due to like the humanoid features that they saw that they're able to see, such as standing bipedally, having two looking feet, the 2 wings on the back, but also looking like they have arms and hands. But they weren't able to get any more specific on the description just because it took off right away.
Yeah, I would have easily jumped in that grave and been like, just bury me! Bury me!
So this area that these 5 men were located in was actually around an abandoned TNT area, which would be also the second area for the sightings, which will happen just a couple days later. Pretty much a little bit of backstory on the TNT area. It was a West Virginia ordnance, which included an abandoned area that made dynamites and gun ammo for World War II. The area was covered in these thick concrete domes or igloo-looking type structures that stored all of the gunpowder, the dynamite, when they were trying to sell them before they could like distribute it out. Completely abandoned tunnels all around it, starting to collapse a little bit. So a lot more urban spelunkers are starting to go there, take a look at it, trying to see if they could even come across their own Mothman. Later in 1979, it was actually reported that a fisherman was able to see chemicals coming from the abandoned mine into the water stream just because of how poorly it was left before it was abandoned.
Nice, dude. Pre-EPA, the lifestyle.
Right. Going to the second sighting on November 15th, just 3 nights later. The second sighting was actually seen by 2 couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry, and their friends Steve and Mary Mallett. Roger was driving his Chevy Bel Air car with his 3 friends in it, driving around the TNT area when they encountered the bizarre creature. Around midnight, Linda noticed along the tree line again 2 large reflective glowing eyes in the darkness. Roger then pulled his car over to look to see exactly what it was, and what the lights car was this really bizarre brownish color looking creature with wings. They approximated it as 7 feet tall again, just like the 5 grave diggers. Bird/humanoid creature was described by them, and the wings were folded back against its back. Linda, shortly realizing that this just wasn't a bird or something that she could explain, started screaming, which caused the creature to fly up into the air and pursue the car.
Oh, man. You done fucked up.
This is where the story that he could exceed like 100 miles per hour flying. After Roger and his friends took off in the car on Route 62, I'm not too sure about the significance of Route 62 because that's the only street that they ever give any specific details on. Roger reportedly got up to exceeding 100 miles an hour, trying to go back to the city to out-chase the creature, but the creature supposedly stayed with the car for a majority of it till the very end when it flew off.
That's crazy, dude. No chance.
It only gets better from there. So, Roger, after they revived back at town, confused, like talking it out, Roger, fully convinced that what they were staring at was just a bird, was like, let's go face our fears, let's go back into this. Of course. The 7-foot-tall bird that
can fly 100 miles an hour.
Yes. Fully convinced his friends to go back. But I guarantee
this is easily us in a past life.
100%.
You would easily convince me to go back after I saw the most terrifying thing I've ever seen.
There's that one smart-ass friend there that's just like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, that'd have been me, but I would have never gotten out of the car, so I would have ended up going back just the whole time like, we're really going back after that thing.
Yeah, just immediately agree in the back. Well, shortly after getting back on Route 62, they actually came across the creature again. Turning onto Route 62, they saw the humanoid creature on the side of the road. When they put their lights on it again, it just immediately went up into the air and flew away. And then that's, when the person was like, fucking told you. Immediately after that, they went back to Mason County's courthouse, told the current chief sheriff, George Johnson, and his deputy, Miller Hallstead, about the situation with the bizarre creature. Within 2 hours, they had a full investigating force over there trying to find the creature, find any sort of evidence of the creature, but they weren't able to find it at all. And then on November 16th, the first report of Mothman was put into the newspaper, which was the Point Pleasant Register. The exact headline for this was, "Couple sees man-sized bird, ... creature, ... something.
Yep, I would peed my pants.
Oh, yeah. And then this is actually where Mothman was given his name in the paper. But the odd part is a lot of these, actually, the descriptions have been described as like an owl-type creature instead of a moth.
Yeah. Well, that's why I've always wondered, because every time I hear a description, it's like a bird or an owl, why they came up with Mothman. Like, how does he, look like a moth at all?
Exactly. Yeah, not too sure exactly where they got the name Mothman, but all the reports up to this point in this time seem to be more describing like an owlish type creature.
Maybe like Mothman just sounded better than Owlman, but
Yeah.
Owlman sounds more like a superhero or something. Mothman's a little bit more sinister.
Exactly. Like those damn moths. Nothing's more sinister. So pretty much these were the two main sightings where Mothman was seen. Mothman was then reportedly seen over 100 times within the next 13 months following it. One of the most famous incidences with Mothman where at least what caught my attention, which maybe starts the research into Mothman and cryptids in general, was on December 15th, 1967, the collapse of the Silver Bridge, which supposedly there is an old photo that shows a picture of Mothman reportedly shows a picture of Mothman on the bridge shortly before the collapse, which a lot of people have actually looked at the photo and believe that is some sort of metal that's coming off of the bridge at that time, like flying off a little bit. But because the bridge shortly collapsed, Mothman started becoming known for like whenever someone sees them, impending disasters are about to happen. Supposedly, there are some other sightings of Mothman or Mothman type creatures descriptions. One of them was in Freiburg, Germany, where a Mothman creature was seen and was known to like terrorize some of the miners. Shortly after seeing these reported incidents started happening, the mine collapsed, killing many into it.
What? That's crazy.
Right? A second really known one was Chernobyl. A lot of stories around Chernobyl have stories of what seems to be describing a humanoid type creature with wings that's oddly similar to Mothman. And this was seen weeks up going into the famous nuclear meltdown disaster that forced many to leave.
Uh-huh.
And there's even more recent sightings where there's one of a supposed humanoid creature with wings seen during the 9/11 disasters through some of the...
I've heard about that one.
Yeah, through some of the recording. And then the latest was during the Minnesota bridge collapse, where supposedly there was another picture. I haven't actually been able to find a picture of that one. But that's pretty much the lore behind Mothman, like where it originally started, where all the stories came from. Let's go into some of the different theories of exactly what it could be. Like how you said, there has to be at least some plausible evidence of what this creature could be.
All right, let me put my first theory down. Mothman is easily the first person with a quirk, and he's obviously the very first iteration of My Hero Academia. It's a prequel. Dude.
Is this what My Hero's based off of?
Yeah.
The story of Mothman?
My Hero Academia evolves from cryptids of our time. So, like, Grassman and Mothman have a kid, and then he turns out to be Deku.
What I believe to be mostly is this next part of it, where it's just like a misidentification of a known species. So the original sheriff who took all the reportings, the George Johnson, he believed that a lot of the witness sightings were of large herons, which are pretty much just like large coastal birds, almost like swan's not the right one, but like cranes, pretty much larger birds. A wildlife biologist at the time, a Dr. Robert L. Smith at the West Virginia University, actually believed Mothman to be a Sandhill crane, which after looking up a Sandhill crane, it's not too far off. One thing about a Sandhill crane with a lot of the different reports is the large red reflective eyes, which around the eyes they actually have large red circle coloring around it, which could definitely be misinterpreted as large red eyes if you're seeing it with like light or like a car or something like that. Which that's definitely one of my favorite theories. We also then have a Joe Nichols who believes that this is some sort of owl species that's just being misidentified, especially with the reports of not having the head and just having the eyes on the chest, which is very common, like silhouettes of an owl when they're just sitting there like waiting before they take off.
That's what's crazy to me. Is there are so many species on our planet alone that we do not know anything about.
Yeah.
But we can send like a car into space. But we can't get a half of a skyscraper under the ocean.
I mean, I think when it comes to animals, if I saw an owl at the nighttime, even if I realized it was an owl, I'd still be pretty damn scared. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the thing's gonna claw my eyes out.
So
call Harry Potter.
Yeah, so I definitely think a misidentification is a very fair theory.
The last one that I actually find really amusing is there was a Chief Cornstalk around the area of Pleasant City, and he supposedly was murdered along with his son. Unfortunately, I couldn't find an exact date around for any of this, but supposedly he placed a curse on the area before his death, which many believe the curse is Mothman, which then brings these impending disasters, where the first disaster happening in the area with the bridge closely around Pleasant City. And that's Mothman.